Hi. We got there.
Oh my gosh, we finally got here. Okay,
We
so
got here.
it took us a while. It took us a few
Yes.
days, a few different meeting schedules, and a bit of fumbling. But first
Yeah.
interview of the year. Thank you so much for joining me. It is
That's all
such a
right.
pleasure to have you here. Um,
Thank you for having me.
you are so welcome. Now, for everyone else that is watching, my name is Rhiannon, and I am in charge of Palea Adventures, and I do a bit of author consulting, as well as write fantasy detective novels, and eventually romance novels. And now, I would like you to introduce yourself, because you have some fantastic stuff, Kristy, and I am so keen and so excited to talk about it.
Yeah, so my name's Kristy. I've worked at TV Week magazine, Channel 7, and I've done some ghostwriting, which a lot of people think means writing about ghosts, which it is not. It is actually writing books that get published under someone else's name.
So, tell me a bit first about how you got into TV magazine and into Channel 7, because those are things that so many people aspire to be part of, but I also fully know that the glitz and glam of those sorts of environments are not as conducive to creativity as a lot of people think they might be. So, give us a little bit of your history.
Yeah, so I was actually at university at the time that I started at TV Week magazine. My magazine teacher actually recommended me for an internship, and I was working alongside him, and within about 2 weeks they hired me, which is unheard of.
Goodness.
So I was working as a freelancer alongside my teacher while I was at university. I should preface it by saying that I hated my whole first year of uni. It was all newspaper writing, and I was like, this is awful. What am I doing here? And then we did magazine writing, and I was like, this is it. This is what I like to do.
I'm so glad
And
that you
they,
said that newspaper writing was actually awful, because it's a lot of people think as authors, oh, I should become a journalist first. I should a journalist or English teacher if I want to be a
yeah,
fiction author. And
yeah,
I'm like, neither of those say fiction author. Now, they are good
no,
for training in certain
yes,
things, the
yeah,
same way that practicing your tenses deliberately is good for you.
yeah,
But just writing for them does not make you a good author. It makes you an
exactly.
obvious journalist.
Exactly. And I just remember questioning, what am I doing in this path? And then I got the internship and then a job. And I was like, this is what I'm meant to do. And I was there for about a year. And that is when the market went down, I'll just say. I don't want to swear. And they got rid of all the freelancers. And I ended up at Channel 7. So I was in programming, but I got to write and edit storylines and do some scheduling and just help with different like publicity and things like that, and really just become an all-rounder. And it was a really good learning experience for me. But COVID hit. And yes, and we were the last department hit. The company was already downsizing, and COVID hit, and we were the last department hit, and first in, first out. So I was the
Yeah.
last hire that they had. I was there for 5 years, so I was there for a good chunk.
You were the
And they
last
made me,
hire 5 years ago? That's extraordinary.
yeah, or maybe within like what I was doing,
Yeah, but
because they
still,
did
that's,
the program, like some of the scheduling stuff, they had more people, but
it does show.
and then
It
that's when I
shows the
started.
longevity,
Yes,
though. I think that's important, because there's, when it comes to media,
yes,
it can often be very transient with the staff, because I know
yes,
it's intense. And so it shows a lot about you to have handled that, to handle the pressure,
yeah,
and to have found that flow for 5 years.
yeah,
I used to work on cruise ships, and so for me, the staff were always changing. A minimum of
yes.
every 6 weeks, you'd nearly have a whole new ship sometimes,
Wow.
because everyone would be changing their contracts. Only
Yeah.
some people would come back
Stuck
for
it.
return contracts, and less people would come back consistently for
Yeah.
contracts. So, yeah, to know that a creative industry, and like, I know Channel 7 is a bit of a monolith.
Yes.
So they've got a strong foothold where they are. it takes a lot of stuff to move that kind of bedrock.
Yes,
Like
exactly.
digital cameras and phone cameras wiping out Kodak. But not
Yes.
GoPro.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
It's about who you're servicing.
They're not easily whacked down. But no, I've tried to use everything as a learning experience. And I actually I had constant like sickness while I was there, just from catching the train, just from getting that travel. And then COVID hit and I was like, yeah, this is a sign. But I've been lucky to I found ghostwriting in the pandemic. That was what I kind of clung on to. I was in a very small apartment with my husband. It was our first time living out of home, and it was a very dark, secluded kind of apartment. And it was COVID, so it was scary. And ghostwriting was my outlet. I had a few friends from TV Week who suggested, just go online, see what's out there. People are always looking for freelance writers, and I started small. I started in the entry level ones that you can just kind of bid for and be like, look, I've got some experience but not a lot, and just worked from there. And I ended up after on and off for a year or so, I ended up working for a UK publisher and a US publisher. Yeah, so that's kind of how I got into it. But yeah, I started small. That's definitely important to note.
One of the things that I like to really pry into with the Ambitious Authors podcast and all of the consulting that I do, especially with people that have found a foothold in success, is to find out what was that initial thing that got you there. So what were you actually looking for online that led you to ghostwriting?
Yeah, it was really just writing jobs in general. And I kind of looked into different platforms. It was a big shift at the time from print media to online. Mm-hmm. And it kind of worried me because I was like, I don't know where I stand in that. I don't feel like I have enough experience. I did turn down a writing job right after I got into Channel 7 because I'd already accepted the contract. And it was kind of like, oh, should I have gone with that other one instead, because that was an online writing one, and it was with Pedestrian TV, and I was like, oh, should I have gone with that? But I just saw that there was a market for book writing, and that's what I love to do. I've done it in my spare time. I hadn't shown anyone any of my work, but it was something that I like to do. It's just like these characters have to get out of my brain. Mm-hmm. And I've on and off written for a long time, but I have notebooks and notebooks of just characters and stories that have not been culminated, I guess, or so I saw that as an opportunity when I saw that there was books. I started with other little ones, like there was just random projects on there where you could write celebrity bios, and then I saw the market for book writing and I was like, oh, maybe I could give it a go. I'll start small, and I went from there, and that's really where I kind of feel at home, is creating worlds and characters. And
I love that.
But my only regret is that there's a 3-book series out there. It's a heist series, and it was very much like a found family one that I wrote. And it is the only one that I've been like, when I finished it, I was like, oh, I hate that this is going out in the world and it doesn't have my name on it.
That's actually what stopped me the entire time from doing ghostwriting.
Yeah.
And just before, like when we were troubleshooting all the camera issues before, I was telling Kristy that one of my good friends is actually a ghostwriter. She turned around to me and I was like, oh, you get like $800 a book. For the books that she's writing, and they're romance novels. They're between the 60 and 80,000 words. So like it's not a lot of money. I feel like if she had owned the ghostwriting as her own business, she'd probably get a bit more out of it, because every single other person along the way is taking a cut. But she looked at me and she was like, no, it's not for you, Rhiannon. You can't do it. You would want too much to talk about it and put your name on it and show that you had influence in it. And for me, I'm like, no, fully. I couldn't do that if it was a project that was close to my heart, like your Found Family High Fantasy one, or High Series one.
Yeah, high series. Yeah. And also, you don't, in a way, it's good because you don't know whose name goes on it and you don't know if it's just where it ends up. I don't know. And especially because it's in the UK and US.
Yeah.
I haven't stumbled across one of my own yet, which is, I guess, a relief. um, so yeah, but once it's written, I kind of don't know where it goes. And some people have sent me things and been like, "Is this yours? Is this yours?" Because I can give a vague summary, but I can't tell you exactly what I've done, and that's really hard. And it's also really hard to be like, I am technically a published author. But it doesn't have my name on it. And that's something I've really had to, it's got a lot of imposter syndrome in there of being like, well, no, actually I am a writer and I am a published author, but just not under my name.
That's extraordinary though. The oh, like every inch of that is like, oh, like you, for me again, want to put my name on the work that I do, even if it's just an acknowledgement or anything like that. But also there's some trends that I noticed that I find that Australian ghost writing jobs go for memoir. And so it's not really, it's ghostwriting, but it's not ghostwriting at the same time. The person is like, hey, I want to write my memoir. I'm not confident in writing. Can you help me with that? And then my name goes on it as the author, even though it's all their story. And sometimes the author themselves, like the writer, will put their name on as the editor or as a different position or a consultant. They'll get some form of acknowledgement. But it's someone else's story entirely, and you've just helped them mold their story into words that are palatable for a wider audience, which is pretty amazing. And Australian stories are so underrated. We have so much diversity and so much strength in us, and I feel like we don't see it very much. But what I've noticed with ghostwriting jobs going into the US is they are often romance writers, and these romance authors are getting Australian authors and British ghostwriters to write their stories for them so they can mass produce them. And I'm like, I wonder how the AI side of things touches on that, but also I'm fully aware as someone who loves to muck around with AI and break the hell out of it. I also love programmers bitching about it too. But because of that, I'm like, I wonder how that's impacted the livelihoods and careers of the Australian ghostwriters writing these huge romances or huge quantities of romances for American authors.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, they actually all the ones I worked on had a clause that you cannot use AI. They specifically want it to come from people. And I think there are some jobs where they give you a project. I didn't do them, but I saw them advertised, and it was like they give you a project and it's already written by AI and you have to rewrite it to give it a human touch. And that's one thing, but most of them, especially if they're a legit publisher, they don't want you using AI at all. They check it actually.
There's a few legal things around that. Like if you take AI and it's given you the body of a story, I use it often if I'm like, oh, I just need to, because I do a bit of romance writing, I'll be like, give me a couple of prompts, give me a basic synopsis of something hot and fantasy, and then I'll write the rest of it. But it's because I want to get it out quickly. I don't want to invest in it. I don't want to put heart and soul into it. And I'm like, oh, come on, just give me something I can chuck it in my marketing and I'll be happy. But when it comes to AI actually writing the story and you publishing the words directly of AI, that is becoming increasingly a legal thing where you can't copyright it. So of course they want humans to write it because they will have their work, like it's stolen enough as it is. But when it's stolen and someone can legally continue to make money off it, that's of course publishers don't want that. They want to protect themselves. So a human has to be that barrier.
Yes, absolutely. And I think it's very interesting. We've had these conversations at work. I work at HarperCollins at the moment, and it's interesting what... I can't say too much in it. I know that legally I can't say much about AI in terms of where I work now, but I think it's really interesting how it's being used. Like, we keep saying, why is it being used in creative spaces when it can be used, cure cancer, do something, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like, leave the creative things to the people. I mean, that's what the whole writer's strike was about in the US. And I think it's like, yeah, you know what? Just let us do our thing and let them do something else.
Yeah. Let it take away the jobs that are brain numbing and soul crushing, and let us do the things that are uplifting and positive and beautiful and human, innately human. Let us be the ones to make the music and to write the stories and to draw the pictures. And thank goodness they haven't taught AI to dance yet. But use these things to help you elevate your own craft. Use them as an aid, as a soundboard, as an assistant, but don't use them to make the art.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah.
No, it's an amazingly different world we live in immediately. And I think that I've got some strong opinions on who is pushing AI and for what reasons. But yeah, it's a bold new world, and we have to find what our boundaries are within it.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. Yeah. All about finding where it can fit, where it should fit, and where it's too far. I found, even with stories that I wrote that I guess didn't care about as much. Some of the ghostwriting ones are very instant love. But even then, I feel like I give a piece of myself to every story. I put my humor in it. I put my banter. I really try and ground it, even if it's a story that I wouldn't write myself. And I found those ones a bit easier to give away because I was like, this is not something I would write. The instant love ones I churned out pretty easily, but the bigger projects and the more intricate ones, those are the ones that I had a hard time giving away because you put yourself into them. You really do give a part of yourself in everything you write. And that's something that AI can't do.
No. I feel the same way when someone gets me to write a blog post or when they get me to write an author bio. It's a very similar thing where they're like, I get to hype them up and I get to be their cheerleader in that moment, and it feels special, but it is absolutely theirs. It's their story. It's their... It feels like I'm just mirroring a part of them. And, or if they're helping them with their marketing or something like that, and they're like, oh, I don't know what I should be doing. And I'm like, oh, well, what if you like did a therapy session with your characters involved or that sort of thing? Which would be super fun and super quirky. I'll even help you film it. But then I'm like, I don't need that. I don't need a therapy session for my characters. I know they're messed up. or it's just not something that will fit with them. And so I'm very happy to give that over. But when it comes to if someone was like, oh, Rhiannon, can you help me make an at-home escape room? I'm like, I could. Or, dinner murder mystery party. It's like, I could absolutely do that. But I don't want to because I want to do that.
Yeah, exactly. There's some stuff that you're like, this is mine.
Yeah. Just my niche.
This is my line. Yeah.
Oh, no, it's so good. And finding those boundaries, finding those niches really tells you about yourself as well. Finding where you get that resistance and that pushback from really shows you where your passion lays within the huge scope of literary craft that we function under.
100%. And I did some action ones as well. And they are my favorite to write, my least favorite to outline. They are the most horrid thing to outline. It's that audio that's like, I think it's Alex from Wizards of Waverly Place. And she's like, I have to fix the problem that I made myself. Like, yes. And that's the hardest part. Every ghostwriting project, they give you sometimes only a day or two to outline, and you have to outline and flesh out. Usually they'll just give you a couple lines of what they want, and you go from there. And then you do the whole fleshing out of the story. That's the hardest part for me always, because it's the most mental. It's like mental Olympics, just drafting out someone's book. And then the writing part really comes easily to me. It's like a movie in my head. I mean, there are some parts where I'm like, why is half the room missing in the visual? But yeah, it's interesting. I have seen a few people recently saying that they read and write differently. Not everyone sees the visual.
Yeah, exactly.
Whereas I do. Yeah. So that's what I usually do. Yeah.
I do find it fascinating because I've got some coaching clients that have to have the visual. If they can't see it, they cannot write it. And it's really fascinating to me because I'm a feelings person. I've had glasses ever since I was about 13, and I feel like I can navigate the world blind, but I have to be able to touch and smell and feel the room, and the emotions have to be a level of palpable for me to be able to feel that as well. And for me, that's what drives stories. But when I'm reading, it doesn't matter what I'm reading. That's the only way that I write. And I can definitely appreciate people that have that gorgeous cinematic mindscape that they're able to utilize. I find the Dresden Files by Jim Butcher is like that. So it's a noir wizard series. It's quite popular. And he's very cinematic, like D&D style cinematic. So really,
oh wow,
phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal stuff. But I really want to know a bit about your process. And you said outlining is quite intense for you. It's like mentally intensive. Where do you start, and how do you proceed, and when do you know you're finished?
Yeah, absolutely. So they actually gave me a template for theirs. So I find freelance writing is a lot different. Hold on 1 second, sorry.
It's all good. I can cut.
Hi, baby. I'll be in a minute. I can just hear, Mom. Okay, I'll start again on that one.
Okay.
So outlining for me is very different with freelance writing than my own. They give you a template, and a lot of it goes against what you're told for traditional publishing. They want you to start right at the inciting incident. Mm-hmm. They want the action. They want it quick. A lot of it, they just want fast paced. So with outlining, I would start beginning, middle, end. I would figure out my characters. What kind of personality do they have? Are they uptight? Are they laid back? What's their family history like? Kind of just flesh out the characters a bit, so then I know where they're going to move within the story and how they're going to butt heads, I guess, or what their conflict's going to be. A lot of the time they'll tell you, some of them are paragraph by paragraph, they'll tell you exactly what they want, and you just follow their guidelines. Other people, they give you like a couple of sentences and they're like, run.
Okay, so, which ones do you prefer?
I prefer the run. I like to flesh out the worlds myself, but I really am a planner. I will go down to like, what's their favorite color? What do they drink when they're stressed? Opposed to, their favorite coffee drink. What alcohol do they drink? What's their nervous habits? I really like to get into, they have to be real to me for me to then play with them in different scenarios.
I love that.
So,
When I was first writing my first book and actually winning at it, not just writing a cool scene and then being done, they had so it was with the Novel Factory. Not yet a sponsor, but maybe one day. And they had 182 questionnaire all about one character. So 182 questions to help you do exactly what you were talking about. The questions were things like, what's in their fridge? What would they have in their handbag? What would their handbag look like? What's in their bedroom? Why? Who is their mortal enemy? Do they have one? What do they like? What do they dislike? Verbal tics, all sorts of things. The medical history, like you feel like you're genuinely creating a full-blown person. It's so much. I love it so much. I've done it for all of the main characters and leading characters in my series. But when I've done it for smaller characters, I find that you can break it down to a Matt Mercer Dungeons and Dragons level of, okay, what do they want? What are they afraid of? And what will they do to get what they want? And then physical description. So if you can answer those, you can have a side character. But if you can't answer those for your lead characters, you have a lamp.
Yes, 100%. And that was what I was going to say next is as long as I know what the character wants and what's in their way, that's kind of the base as well, especially with ones that it's other people's writing. I'm like, okay, well, this is the least amount of information I need to know.
Yep.
But I still like to make them as real as possible. And I think for me, yes, it was making money, not a lot of money, but it was something to keep those creative juices going. It really did help me become a better writer. I'm now writing my own stuff, and I found I really had to break what they had molded into me because all of them have the same structure, the same guidelines, and it's not the same as traditional publishing. A lot of them have a different structure and a different momentum to them, and it's not how I want to write mine. So that was
saying that the freelance ghostwriting, they wanted more action straight up and less character driven stuff, whereas traditional publishing was more character focused.
100%. It's less world building, less depth, I guess I would say. There was only one or two projects where they really gave me the time and space to world build, and like the one that I gave away that I loved, the heist one, that was the one I got to sink my teeth into the most and make these real people. Whereas the other ones, sometimes it's very much a flat person, if that makes any sense. It's just they don't have as much depth, and I brought as much depth as I could to what they wanted in the time they wanted it. And sometimes you just don't have the time to be like, okay, I want to really sink into their past or things that would make the story more interesting, because they just want to churn out instant loved ones. And
of course. They want that. Twilight was incredibly popular, and 50 Shades of Grey was also very popular. I will argue that the main characters in 50 Shades had more personality than the ones in Twilight. But it was because they were so cardboard. It was, you could put yourself in their clothes. You could put yourself in there. And so all of these teenage girls gave Bella more personality and gave Edward more aspects of what they wanted from someone, because there was such a blank slate to do that with, which does lend itself to a good romance. But because it's been done, and it's been done so much, it doesn't lend itself to the desired cult following and exciting, explosion in the literary sphere and in an author's pocket, as much as what we would hope for. So I think that the cardboard cutout has been done and dusted. I think, especially women being the primary readers of romance, they really want to see uniqueness and variety, and they want to see their dream selves. And the women they wish they had the courage to be, or the women that have a reflection of themselves within them, whether that's a disability, an ethnicity, a family background, an education background. So having something there for them to actually cling on to. But then again, I think teenagers can also be a bit cardboard as well, because they're finding their personalities. They're malleable. So not cardboard. They're malleable, and they have so much more to grow and experience and to develop within themselves, that of course a cardboard cutout of a sort of human looking figure is enough for them to imprint on.
Yeah, exactly. And they're still finding bits of themselves and trying things on. They're trying personalities on. They're trying hobbies on. They're trying to figure out what they want. And you're so correct in saying that it's a projection. They can project themselves into it very easily. But I do like the stories that I'm seeing more and more, which, I think the reason romance and romantasy is so popular is when the characters, especially the guys, worship the women, and I'm like, yes, they should be. You should all be worshipped.
Yes,
like
absolutely.
And the culture that exactly, and the culture we're in at the moment, where I'm raising a daughter in a world where the Andrew Tates of the world are out there, and the current president and all this kind of, we went through a really good Barbie, Taylor Swift. Exactly. And we went through a really good like Taylor Swift Barbie era. It felt like women were coming up on top. They're finally getting their moment. They can love things and do things openly and not be criticized for it. And then the opposite, the hammer came down, Andrew Tate's, the president, all that stuff. And it's just
I'm actually really proud of Australia, especially South Australia, for
yeah.
upholding the strength of their what they wanted with contraception and abortion. They were not going to let anyone budge them on that. I hope everyone, as we go into an election, I hope everyone remembers that and remembers that even if you don't choose that in your life, everyone else deserves that choice.
100%.
But I also think that in those spaces that were feminized and celebrating femininity, we found that men were welcome there. They just had to behave. They just had to show civility, kindness, and understanding. That was the only three things. They could dress how they wanted. They could rant how they wanted. They just had to be kind, civil, and understanding while they were in those spaces. And they got so mad about that.
But all the people all the guys I saw at the Eras Tour were having a blast. They were swapping friendship bracelets. They were singing along. Even if they weren't singing along, they were vibing. They enjoyed the crowd. Like, it was just such a happy place. And then to see it,
those men have the community that the Andrew Tate men wish they had.
Exactly. 100%. That's exactly what it is. And I was talking to my husband about how I'm just hoping the tide turns by the time my daughter's a bit older, because it's not good to see how wonderful it was to then get flipped completely because men are basically toddlers having temper tantrums. And I just, I could go on about this forever.
Yeah, same. The expectation as well that women should have, especially Australian women. I find that Australian women really baby and parentify themselves. We've been taught to do this our whole lives. We've been taught to do this. I still do it. And I find that it makes me actually resent some of my coaching clients because they display, male and female and in between, but they display this, I just can't do it, can you do it for me attitude, and I will not tolerate it. I crack the whip on them when they try and show me that attitude, and it's like, I will absolutely give you the path if you give the effort and if you show me the determination that this is actually what your soul craves. Because if you can't show me that, then why am I here? Why are we bothering with this? If this is not your calling, if this is not what every inch and fiber of your being is called to do, then don't bother me, because you are going to waste my breath and your energy.
Yes, exactly.
When it comes to holding men accountable and in a space, it only requires them to be respectful, understanding, and thoughtful. That's
exactly.
That's all it requires, and that's what a good man is always like. So our romance writers out there, please write good men. There's a fantastic author on the north side of Brisbane who writes bikey romance, and oh my gosh, for criminals, her men are so good. They are so good. And I find it so much fun when it comes to romance. So many side quest conversations. But I find it so good when it comes to romance, and you can still have the tropes that give you that thrill. So the old bodice rippers had a lot of borderline non-consensual to actively non-consensual passionate sex in them, but it was between the two main characters, so it was still considered sex and not something more sinister. And then eventually the main character would grow up and the main male lead would grow a heart. And I think that we can still have elements of danger elements of danger. We can have huge swaths of danger, and volatility and realness, and still have those beautiful fantasy elements that make us feel attracted to these stories.
Yes.
I think that it's still fully possible, and I think that it just requires a new level of creativity. And
Yeah.
all of my romance and romantasy writers out there, I absolutely know that you would be able to do that, and we can set the challenge to you now.
Yes,
But good men, but
exactly.
still enticing and thrilling and dangerous.
Yes, they can still have edge and they can still do things that you might not be agree with, but respecting women, right up there.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
fully. And
Yeah.
I heard someone say the other day, it was like, oh, someone asked for consent in my romance book or my erotica book, and it just fully turned me off. And I was like, well, they clearly didn't ask for it in a sexy way, because I've seen so many times when it's done
Yeah.
so well,
Yeah.
and it just heightens everything. It's like, okay, we are
Yeah.
on.
Yeah, like it makes it, if it's done right, it makes it even hotter. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, yes,
Yeah.
let's do this.
Tantalizing.
Yeah, exactly. Tantalizing. That's it for sure.
Oh. So when you have written, when you've got the process down pat, and so we've spoken about your process as a freelancer and what people give you, what you need from them to actually proceed with the story, what your favorite things are, and also the difference between traditional publishing and freelancing. What is the next step for you? Do you just start writing the story out right from the go, or do you pick your favorite scenes, or do you scene block until it gets thick enough to start writing?
Within my own writing, it is complete chaos.
I love that. I love that.
So I would get stuck, especially on one that I'm working on that is very much adventure-y. It's love, but it's adventure. And it's been in my head for a solid 10 years. And I hit roadblocks at certain parts. And I decided to start free writing and just writing the scenes that are in my head out of order, which is so against my nature to go in order of every single thing. But I think I know the characters well enough now that they've been in my head for so long that I'm like, no, that person wouldn't do that. And there was one the other day that came to me while I was driving, and they referenced, the characters had a life of their own and referenced something from beforehand. And I was like, I haven't written that yet. What are you talking about? Like, sometimes they're just like, no, this happened previously and that's going to be a wink at that. And I'm like, oh, okay. But I got, for my 10-year anniversary with my husband, he got me a tablet, and I've got a book of each. I've got an outline of each. I've got characters of each. They've all got their own little set of books where I'm putting all my notes, and I kind of wrote down, there's at least 10 book ideas I've had over the years, and I wrote them all down, just a couple sentences in each. And then I decided on the 2 that I want to work on. And yeah, at the moment I'm free writing, but I really have been putting off outlining. So I'm going to properly outline and make sure they're all fleshed out one day and then properly do it. But my first draft is just chaos.
Oh, absolutely. Like I've said to a few of my coaching clients, I'm like, hey, when you have your principle, that's great. They normally come to me with the first draft or with semblance of the first draft. And then they're like, oh, I put this in, this is cool, and this is cool, and this is cool, and then it goes to this, and then it goes to this. And I'm like, it's full of and thens, buddy. You can't have and thens. It has to be the Trey Parker, Matt Stone formula of therefore or but then. And if you've got that, it's a worthwhile story. It has to have that flow, because if you're just chucking and then this happens and then this happens and then this no, it's going to fall apart. You see blockbuster movies do that, and you're just like, I say blockbuster, you say triple A. You see triple A movies do that, and you're like, you were not worth the money.
Yeah, you feel like they're just throwing things at the wall and like, okay, that's stuck. It kind of stuck. We'll keep it there. Add the next thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's when you have audiences shred it apart. I think there's a couple of Star Wars movies that come to mind initially, but there's also a couple of very well-known books that come to mind not long after, and I'm like, oh no. Oh.
Yeah. How do you feel about, sorry, I'm turning the tables, the journalism in me. How do you feel about the books that get turned into movies or TV series? Because I know they did City of Bones and then they did Shadowhunters, and everyone hates Shadowhunters, and I loved it. I met the cast of them. They were lovely. I think I see them as a separate entity from the books, though. I think that's where my opinion differs, is that I see it as a different entity. So yeah, I'd love to know your thoughts on that.
I think that if the creator of the movie
Yeah.
is in love with the source material, they can't
Yeah.
go wrong. If the
Yeah.
creator adores the source material,
Yeah.
then you get Lord of the Rings. You
Yeah.
get a set of movies, or you get a TV show that is so adored by everyone. When you see the behind the scenes of Lord of the Rings, and they talk about how they actually made an aluminium chain mail, like they've got blacksmiths on set cutting
Yeah.
and welding swords for different scenes that they want to do. They
Yeah.
had they sculpted everything. Everything was
Yeah.
really like real. Peter Jackson had people walking through Hobbiton so that it looked lived in. And he would just have people walk from one path to another so that the path was trodden. And it would look like someone did actually go and hang the laundry out on that path every day. So the fine level of detail, the love of the source material, the love of the author, or at least the appreciation of the author. So I know there's plenty of people that love Lovecraft, and you can appreciate Lovecraft, but you don't have to love him because he was pretty crazy. And I think that, the more that you love the source material, the more of a gem you are going to polish from the book that you're crafting it from. One thing that I will say, though, is having the author involved can be incredible, and it can also be incredibly detrimental because of ego. So I am glad that the Witcher series, season 1, we only talk about season 1 for the Witcher. I'm glad that that didn't have the author, because I think he is a bit rough. I don't actually remember if he's alive or dead at the moment, but I do think I've heard negative reports of interactions with him. So he may have tainted the situation, but I do think that they should have leaned on Henry Cavill through the whole thing. I love the Witcher series. I've listened to the audiobook series, and I have the paperback series. And it is not only a phenomenally written series, it is intricate. Like, I prefer that over Game of Thrones any day. But it has the levels of magic and pain and grit and realism mingled in with, the supernatural, with the folklore. It's just, it's a fantastic series. You don't have to love the author to love that series. But then you've got things like Bridgerton. I didn't enjoy the Bridgerton books at all. I found them tedious. I found them, but they were written 20 years ago. That was one thing I was going to touch on earlier. The difference between books written 20 years ago or 50 years ago to books and 100 years ago to now is exponentially different. We, like, everyone's craving and everyone's told to want that inciting incident. You want every line to be a hook. You want every line to lead you into new information. And I've reported this as well, and I've said this information too. But the writer, what's her name? Shonda Rhimes? Is it Shonda Rhimes? The author of Bridgerton is deeply involved with the new series. And
Quinn.
Oh, Julia Quinn.
Julie Quinn. I was thinking of the writer of the TV.
Yes, no, Shonda is the writer of the TV show. Julie Quinn is heavily involved in the TV show, so she helps a lot. And they took her baby from 20 years ago, and they've recrafted it into something that is so colorful, so beautiful, and so positive on every aspect. Whereas her original books, I found they had the stereotypical 90s fat phobia. They waffled a lot without having levels of sensuality and levels of passion in the scenes. Like, it was fun little scenes, but they weren't gripping to me. They didn't pull my heartstrings, and I found them a bit difficult to get through. And of course, back then, she was not in the forefront of her mind to put
No.
Indian characters in or to put black characters in. It just wasn't there, and no one's going to blame her for that. No one's going to say she was racist for that. It was just
the time.
That wasn't prominent. That wasn't a thing to do when she was writing these things.
Yeah.
I feel like Thomas Harris, the writer of Hannibal Lecter, he was probably the inciting incident for having people in places that you would not expect people of color to be, or women to be. I love his work. It's fantastic. But when it came to Julia Quinn writing these ones, no one's going to blame her for not having these characters in. And she loves the fact that they've added so much diversity to the TV show. It is glorious, it is stunning, and it adds so much more to everything.
It does. They really took the base of what it was and collaborated and made it something amazing and fresh and new and thoughtful in their choices. And I can't praise Shonda Rhimes enough. I did I can't remember what they're called. It's not like a TED Talk. I can't remember what they're called. Where you watch they kind of teach a course.
Yeah, like a masterclass.
Yes, it was a masterclass. And I did Shonda Rhimes' one, and it was just so interesting to hear about how she came up with Grey's Anatomy and the characters, and she went back to the alcohol choice for Scandal and for Grey's Anatomy. She's like, the first thing, or one of the first things, I'm kind of ad-libbing, but like that's what I remember from it, was her describing, I knew what her drink of choice was when she was upset. I knew how she dealt with, when she was stressed. And I was like, oh, okay. And that was the first time I was like, oh, okay, that's a good way to really ground out your characters. So I love her.
Oh, it's so good. She's so like a master of her craft, like actual
she
master
is
of her craft. Oh,
she's incredible.
All of her stuff is a pleasure to watch, and it's always like I can't say enough just how gripping. Yes. I don't even like Grey's Anatomy, but every time I see Grey's Anatomy short come up on my phone, I'm like, I can't look away. I have to see all of this. I have to watch all of it, and where's the next bit?
I was into Grey's Anatomy for a long time, and my daughter was almost named Lexi because I am a Lexi Grey fan until I die. And my husband was like, no, I know where that name comes from. Little did he know when he picked the name Ivy, it is also, as you can tell, I'm a massive Swiftie. I've met Taylor. It is a song. It is a Taylor Swift song. And he did not find out until I was in labor on the way to the hospital. It came on shuffle and he goes, her name's the Taylor Swift song. And I was like, it's too late now, buddy. You pick the name.
Oh, I got my partner to agree to, if this child's not born on this particular day, but I said, if we have a child and they are born on the 4th of January, they are being called Sherlock. I don't care what anyone says. That is Sherlock Holmes's actual birthday. They are being called Sherlock. I don't care what anyone, like, you can't say nothing. Like, that is a sign. And so.
No. Yeah.
But I, would never want to have a summer baby in Australia. That would be awful.
No, my daughter was in May, and someone kept saying, what if it's May the 4th? And it was like,
that's Jean, the beautiful
That's not mine. Yeah. But my best friend actually had a baby around the same time, and we both missed the 4th. So someone out there does have a May the 4th baby. Just not us.
Two of my patrons got married on May the 4th. And so they're
I love
Star Wars
that.
and Star Trek fans.
Yeah. I love that.
Oh.
I love when people, and that's the thing, what I love about writing and building these worlds is people really do connect with them and find comfort in stories and people and these things that maybe they don't find elsewhere. And I think that's what I love about writing is connection to people. And if I write things and put them out and people connect with them, that's all I want. Like, people talk about money all the time, and I'm like, there is no money in writing. Not a lot. Unless you're,
I definitely want to know if your ghostwriting was enough to get by. Yeah. And I think that's a key thing here. If it's enough to work full time on, you don't need millions of dollars. I always say that our minimum wage should really be $80,000 a year. And then if minimum wage was $80,000 a year, we'd get our 50s, stuff where you could have someone stay at home and look after the kids, and you could get you 2 holidays a year, for working in a coffee shop. And that's an idea. That's my ideal. But yeah, as long as you're getting a minimum of $80,000 a year, and if you really want to scrounge, then about 60. But if you're getting any less than that, you need something to help supplement your income up to that.
100%. And with the freelance writing, I think it's important to know it's not always consistent. You can get a contract and then they can be like, we're inundated with editing, not yours in particular, but just their editing backlog is really high. And now, they're not going to do contracts for a few months. So if you're looking for consistency, it's not really the place to go. And there's definitely highs and lows of people wanting content. You can have one where you've got 3 contracts at once, and then another month where it's like, it's died off and I have 1 and it's for the author directly. So it's not as higher paying because it's not directly with the publisher, and it is competitive to get those contracts too. So nothing's guaranteed, which is why once I had my daughter, I went into a couple different odd end jobs. Like I was a dental assistant for a moment, and then I found my role at HarperCollins, and I was like, this is where I'm meant to be. It combines all my cool, admin side my history, my background, and I also get to be around books. So
that's very cool. So are you allowed to talk about your role at HarperCollins and what you do?
I believe so. I just didn't want to talk about AI in relation because that's not my place.
No, that's fine.
Yeah. So at the moment, I am an admin coordinator at HarperCollins, but it's at the distribution center. So I'm in the middle of nowhere. So there's not a lot of jobs and roles around this area that are media or publishing related. And when I saw it come up, I was like, wait, what?
Sorry, I can hear my partner yelling in the other room, and I was told him that I've got an interview this afternoon, and he's just got super excited about whatever he was playing on Baldur's Gate.
That is no problem.
Okay, carry on.
Oh, good. So I work at HarperCollins in the distribution center, and I do admin there. So it's a lot of doing reports and things like that, but I also get to handle the staff library. I'm currently working on our book sale, so I'm trying really hard not to buy too many books because there's going to be a lot there. But we also distribute for Simon & Schuster and a few other publishing companies, and we get discounts on those as well. So it's kind of like working in heaven, especially when you go out into the center. I just feel like Belle from Beauty and the Beast, because you just walk around. There's just
beautiful.
Oh, the first time I was ever taken around there, I was like, can I live out here? I'm sure the people actually doing the picking and stuff are like, this is normal. And I'm just like, this is heaven. Can I skip around?
Amazing. Amazing.
Yeah.
So you've only been in your role for a short time, haven't you?
Yeah.
In your role, do you ever interact with the people that are on the publishing side, or are you really just working in the beautiful book department?
I've had a little bit of interaction, but there is a city site, which is where most of the publishing, the main stuff happens. And the most interaction I've had with them was finding out that they are Swifties. And I was like, okay, well, I need to come up and be friends with all of you because same. And yeah, I haven't had too much interaction with them, but we do have a few authors come down to the center to sign books and stuff. I know before I started, they had Pat Cummins come. So they do have some interaction, but it's because it's so far out, it's not a central hub. But I would love to learn more in the future about that side of it, because I think it's such an interesting space. Yeah. So hopefully I'll get to learn more in the future. But the role that I'm in now is very much condensed to the space that I'm in. But we'll see. Exciting.
And what books are you working on at the moment?
My own? Oh, my goodness. I rarely talk about them because... The one that I'm working on, it has been called Iron Gates in my head for 10 years. And I recently, when I saw Iron Flame, I was like, that's not going to be the name. It is not going to be the name at all. I would describe it as maybe like Divergent meets Gossip Girl.
Ooh.
And it's always been like that in my head. And recently, some other aspects kind of just all of a sudden these light bulb moments of, oh, that's connecting to that. And I didn't want to add. There was a moment where I was going to add a fantasy element to it. And then I was like, no, this needs to be grounded in just realness. There's a lot of fantasy out there, and that's not a space I'm comfortable playing in yet. So that's one I'm working on. And another one's very much, I don't even know what maybe Famous in Love would be the closest connection to it. Because I did work in media for a while. I saw a lot of behind the scenes things. I had a friend date a guy in a band. So that kind of inspired that of more of like a behind the scenes celebrity type one, like what goes on behind closed doors versus what you see in front of the camera.
Yeah.
And it would be following someone up and coming. So about to have, about to jump into a big fandom that they have no idea about, and get thrown to the wolves, basically. So those are two that I'm working on at the moment. But we'll see what comes of it.
Incredible. And what have you got out?
I don't have anything out at the moment. So I've only ghostwritten for the most part. I have been kind of hesitant to bring my own stuff to life because I've been like, the market's saturated. What's the point?
Everyone is always up to something new. So it doesn't matter how saturated things are. It is all eternal and also transient.
Exactly. And an author friend said to me, she's actually signed, oh no, that was the different one. One of them is signed to HarperCollins. Another friend of mine who's in the industry but hasn't published a book, she actually said to me, no one's got your voice. And even if you think that idea's been done, no one has your voice, no one has your characters, and someone might find something in your story that you didn't even know was there. So that's kind of kept me going. So hopefully I will have something published soon. We will see.
We will stay in contact for that.
Yes, definitely. You'll be the first to know.
And then we will have you back to show us your brand new book cover.
Yes, 100%.
One of your stories out.
Yes, definitely. Thank you so much. It's been so lovely to meet you and to talk to you.
No, it's been fantastic to meet you too, Kristy. It has been so delightful to talk about something that's so hidden from most authors and so elusive. I hope everyone leaving this interview or this podcast, video cast thing, knows now that ghostwriting is not for ghosts.
The amount of times I've had to explain that is unreal. I was like, no.
Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah.
It makes me giggle because it's in the name. It's in the name.
Yeah. I get why, but then when I explain what I do, they're like, why is it called that? I'm like, because you're a ghost behind, like, you've written it, but you're the ghost behind.
Oh, it's so cute. Now, where can people find you? Because I know where I found you.
Yes.
Where do you like people to find you?
Yeah, so at the moment I've just started a TikTok. Very new to that in the book talk space. It's I know underscore
in underneath of all of this.
Yeah. Yeah, it's I know Aristotle because Taylor Swift lyric mixing with the books, it's a common theme with me, Taylor Swift and books. Yeah. And that's where I am at the moment and trying to build that up a little bit because I just wanted a book talk space or a book space that I can kind of geek out with people.
Amazing. And it's honestly, I'm so grateful that we can have these spaces. They're so helpful for connecting with real people and making sure that everyone knows that they can actually write as well. If that's what they're calling this to do, then they don't need to go off and become an English teacher or a journalist. They can absolutely dive into the world of fictional writing and pursue 100%. That wholeheartedly.
Yes, 100%. And I think that's something that a lot of people think they need a certain background to go into it, but all you got to do is write. Start writing and go from there, and you can always learn and grow and be better. And that's what I've learned throughout since high school, really. Yeah.
Absolutely. Such an important lesson. thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you.
We will see everyone on the next episode. So make sure you follow Kristy's stuff. I'll link all of her bits and bobs down below. And
thank you so much.
We will contact you again when your next book is out or when there's a new change in the ghostwriting sphere.
Yes, definitely. Thank you so much. And I wish you the best with your first little one.
Thank you. Thank you. We've got 6 more months to do all the renos.
Oh my goodness. If you have any questions, hit me up because I'm such a new mom. I still remember some of it.
I love that. I love that.
Okay.